Henry Ford once said, "If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always gotten." My name is Jürgen Moors. I am a coach, a strategic advisor, and a consultant. And I made it my mission as guardian of manufacturing to secure the future of manufacturing by educating individuals and supporting enterprises. Now, why did I use this quote from Henry Ford? If we look at the manufacturing, and if we look at where we are now, and if we look at the behavior, there are many stakeholders in this aspect. The whole trend of offshoring between the 50s and 2000, 2010, even now, and even the role played in onshoring since 2010. We have a huge amount of stakeholders. We have the companies and their executive management. We have the shareholders of those organizations. We have the unions. We have politics. And what we typically see is that the world has changed. Technological innovation is exponentially growing. But still, most of those stakeholders do as they always do, act as they've always done. So what do you get? What you've always gotten. So when we want to make sure that we secure the future of manufacturing, we should also start working and thinking differently in those different stakeholder areas. And that will not be so easy to do. Because if you look at most of management, most of unions, most of the shareholders, sometimes even the employees, and the enterprises themselves, and politics, they still think in short terms. They still think about where we are now and what we've done in the past. If you look at new technologies like robotics, like for instance artificial intelligence, like for instance extended reality, they have the ability, if you look at it from a holistic point of view, to completely transform the manufacturing industry. One technology in itself already has this potential. So you should imagine from what all of those technologies together would do to, for instance, the manufacturing industry, what they also do for other industries. But why is it then that we are still thinking in those same old concepts, and that those different stakeholders that would love to have manufacturing around, like me, keep on thinking that what they have done in the past will make sure that that manufacturing will stay that it was, like it has been all those years, and that it will not act in the same way. That's a problem a little bit that I see right now, is that most politicians, when we talk about onshoring manufacturing, or even avoiding that certain sub-industries of manufacturing are offshoring, they come up with the same set of changes all the time. And one of the things is, we give them a grant. But the grant in itself will not solve the problem if the general regulation of regulatory frame will not be adjusted to what this new technology can mean. We already see that in certain industries. The same thing if we look at the shareholders. If we keep on focusing on a very short term, on a quarterly basis, how do you expect, or how can we expect that an holistic change will be introduced? Because it will require a certain investment and a certain effort over a longer period of time than just one quarter, and you can even say than just 1 year. So how do we believe that with this focus on a quarterly basis, an industry like the manufacturing industry would make that change? Same thing for management. How do we think that with the continuous focus on short-term operational excellence, on low-hanging fruit for more than 2-3 decades, will change the manufacturing industry as it is? In the meantime, most trees with low-hanging fruit are either empty, or the fruit that is still hanging there is rotten. How do we think as unions to keep the jobs that are in this manufacturing industry if we would just throw away all of those changes and don't expect that the humans, the people in there also has to change? Those technologies that I mentioned before have more than ever before the ability to make an industry, to make a manufacturing industry human-centered, individually centered, but only when you have the guts to embrace them, to experiment with them, and to bring them on board. And not with immediately referring to a set of restrictions where you think from, oh, this could happen, or this could go wrong, or this job could get lost. That's not the way that you change a thing. And one of the symptoms where you can see that is, if you look at the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, a lot of time, even the beginning of this century, the biggest innovations most people encountered in their professional life. Since then, for most of the people, this has changed a whole lot. And with the smartphone, with the tablet, even with AI, we tend to use it a lot more in our personal lives than that we actually use it in our professional lives. And even what we see now is that, especially if you focus a little bit more on the manufacturing industry, from a technological point of view, we are lacking in comparison to what we can do often as a consumer. And to many people that actually go to the job, they think from, okay, I can do less in my job than I can do at home. So there's also a certain frustration coming from that as well. And we have to think about how is it possible that in the meantime, as a consumer often, we are more advanced than we are as a company. And there are many reasons for that. We cannot solve it with just one thing. But the speed of change and innovation is still exploding. There's something we cannot stop. That will be there and that will not change anymore. The question is, what will we do to avoid that this divide between what we can do in our personal lives and what we can do in our professional lives doesn't keep growing exponentially as well? Because then in 5 or 10 years, we have a big problem for people to motivate them to go actually to work, because it's like stepping into another century. And that is why it is so critical that these different stakeholders that are determining the fate of manufacturing also take the time to think about what is our role, and if we think in the future, how can we start doing things, looking at things, thinking about things in a different way, in such a way that we can also expect a different outcome. And there is no quick fix. Forget about that. That never happened and it will never will. But we have to do this thorough investigation. Each stakeholder in itself, and then of course as a group. Now how can we do that? But that is something for another video. See you next time. Bye-bye.